Thank you, Chairman Durbin, members of the committee, for the opportunity to testify here today. My name is Robyn Thomas, and I'm the Executive Director of the Giffords Law Center to Prevent Gun Violence. Giffords Law Center was formed more than 25 years ago after a mass shooting at a San Francisco law firm, and renamed for former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords after joining forces with the organization that she leads. I've been the Executive Director at the Law Center since 2006. This past week, we saw a horrible string of shootings. 10 people, including a law enforcement officer in Boulder, Colorado yesterday. Last Tuesday, 9 people were shot and 8 killed at 3 spas in the Atlanta area. A shocking example of the disturbing increase in violence against the Asian American community. Over the last year, communities have suffered not only from COVID-19, but also from gun violence, a public health crisis that has surged in all of its forms. Suicides have increased dramatically in communities from Philadelphia to Chicago. Domestic violence has also intensified, with many localities reporting more calls to hotlines and police in response to incidents of abuse. Many metropolitan areas have experienced spikes in community violence, with over a dozen cities reporting increases in homicides of 50% or more. We cannot allow this violence to continue for the next generation. Proposed gun law reforms, many of which have been introduced in this Congress and which enjoy widespread public support, would make a difference. These include policies such as universal background checks, extreme risk protection laws, and prohibitions on firearm access to those who commit domestic abuse or hate crimes. They also include proposals to increase funding for critical community violence intervention work, public health research, and for law enforcement. These proposals are a crucial part of an appropriate public health approach focused on prevention, proportional to the seriousness of this issue, and based on the data and research we have for these solutions. Despite what the gun lobby may argue, there is no constitutional impediment to passing life-saving gun laws. Courts across the country have ruled repeatedly that the Second Amendment does not stand in the way of passing stronger gun laws, and the U.S. Supreme Court itself made clear that the right secured by the Second Amendment is not unlimited and has never protected a right to keep and carry any weapon whatsoever, in any manner whatsoever, and for whatever purpose. I know some are eager to make the case that we are only interested in taking away firearms from law-abiding Americans or making it difficult for law enforcement to do their jobs. I want to be clear that we are not advocating for either. But our existing gun laws are irrationally limited, loophole-ridden, and inadequate. And these deficiencies hamper law enforcement's ability to effectively prevent acts of gun violence in our American communities. Everyone should be troubled by the levels of gun violence that we experience. And it's impossible to ignore the reality that when we have more guns, we have more gun violence. We can meaningfully address this by updating our gun laws to ensure both law-abiding Americans have a right to gun ownership, and we can prevent these horrific acts of gun violence that are occurring on a daily basis. Since the founding of our country, gun rights have always coexisted with gun regulations, and the need to protect public safety has always gone hand in hand with Americans' right to own guns. Heller's explicit recognition that a broad range of gun laws are fully consistent with the Second Amendment is in keeping with more than 200 years of American history. And thus all of the proposals that I mentioned in my written testimony stand on firm constitutional ground. Gun deaths in the United States reached their highest level in almost 40 years, with 40,000 Americans dying from gun violence in 2019. Unfortunately, it's a problem unique to our country. Americans are 25 times more likely to be killed by a gun than people in other developed nations. But it's a problem that has solutions. While one single law will never stop all gun violence, we know that strong gun laws will save lives. The only thing standing in the way of laws that prevent needless injuries and death and enjoy the support of an overwhelming majority of Americans is the absence of political will to act. So today, I ask all members of this committee and Congress as a whole to recommit themselves to making progress and taking action to reduce gun violence in this country. Thank you again, Mr. Chairman, and I look forward to taking your questions.